Hello students, welcome to my channel Hans Commerce Tutorial for the lectures on commerce, accounts, finance and management. My suggestion to you, before watching the video, please go to the description below my video. You'll find a link there. Take a printout of the problems given in the link and keep it ready before watching the video so that you can be able to understand the problem, the solution and the explanation to get the maximum benefit from the lectures. Thank you. Hello students, welcome you all back to the classes of Advanced Accounting Company Final Accounts. In the previous sessions we have discussed the theory of company final accounts. Now we'll start the problems on company final accounts. In theory, we have already discussed the format of profit and loss statement and balance sheet of a company according to Companies Act 2013. So we have discussed in detail the complete format and all the items which comes in profit and loss statement and balance sheet. Now we'll start the problems. See the first problem. See the first short problem. From the following particulars pertaining to J Company Limited, prepare profit and loss statement for the year ended 31st March 2015. So in this problem we are required to make the profit and loss statement. Cost of material consumed 1,20,000, revenue from operations 3,57,000, other income 23,000, employee benefit expenses 85,000, finance cost 37,000, depreciation 18,000. Provision for taxation 50% of taxable income. This is the complete problem. Now we are required to make the profit and loss statement. So the new format, according to the new format, the profit and loss statement is like this. The J Company Limited, first you write down the name of the company, profit and loss statement for the year ended 31st March 2015. Remember, it is not an account. It is not an account having a debit or credit side. Here it's a statement. So particulars amount. So revenue and expenses. First two items will take revenue and expense. Under revenue will take revenue from operations, other income. All the details we have already discussed in the theory session. So revenue from operations, it is directly given in the problem 3,57,000 and other income given in the problem 23,000. The total is 3,80,000. 3,80,000 is the total of revenue. Now expenses. Under expenses will take cost of material consumed, directly given in the problem. Cost of material consumed 1,20,000, employee benefit expense 85,000, finance cost 37,000, depreciation 18,000. The total of the expenses are 2,60,000. So A is the revenue, B is the expenses. Now we get profit before tax. Profit before tax, A minus B, revenue minus expenses. So 3,80,000 minus 2,60,000, 1,20,000 is profit before tax. From this we subtract income tax expense of current year. So it is given in the problem income tax rate is 50%. So 50% of 1,20,000, 60,000. Subtract income tax, will get the profit after tax. This is the first problem on profit and loss statement of a joint stock company. It's very simple. The only thing you have to remember is the items which are taken in profit and loss statement. Two items normally will come in revenue and 4, 5, 6 items will come under expenses. So revenue minus expense will get profit before tax, less income tax expense will get profit after tax. This is the first problem. Now see the second problem. From the following particulars relating to Sohan Company Limited, prepare balance sheet of the company as at 31st March 2015. First problem we have done profit and loss statement. The second problem is on balance sheet. Equity, share capital. 50,000 equity shares of 10 each fully paid. Then tangible assets, intangible assets, general reserve, surplus in profit and loss statement, long-term borrowings, inventories. Inventories means stock. The inventories on 31st March 2015, closing stock of inventory. Trade payable, these are nothing but creditors. Then short-term borrowings, non-current investments, current investments, trade receivable, cash and cash equivalent. So all the items of the balance sheet is given. We have to make the format of the balance sheet and take all these items, the balance sheet will get tallied. Now see the second problem. Sohan Company Limited, name of the company first you write down, then balance sheet as at 31st March 2015. Again it is in a statement form. The particulars, note number, amount. The details of all the items can be shown in notes. The notes form part of financial statements. So first of all, equity and liabilities. Then under equity and liabilities, shareholders fund. Under shareholders fund, two items will come: share capital number 1 and reserves and surplus number 2. Note number. In notes, we have to show the detail of the share capital and the detail of reserves and surplus. So we got 5 lakh and 3,65,000. How? Here you can see notes. Notes forming part of financial statement. So share capital 50,000, equity share of 10 each, fully paid 5 lakh. Given in the problem. So you should not write all these wordings in balance sheet itself. This will be taken, recorded in the notes. So 50,000 equity share of 10 each, 5 lakh. Reserves and surplus. General reserve is given 2,35,000. Surplus in P&L statement 1,30,000. So 3,65,000 is the reserves and surplus. So share capital number 1, reserves and surplus number 2. Then non-current liability. There are 3 parts on liability side. The first part is equity and liabilities. The second part is non-current liabilities. And the third part is current liability. These 3 parts are there on equity and liability. Non-current liability, long-term borrowings. The item which come under long-term borrowing is long-term borrowings. Then current liability, trade payable, short-term borrowings. All the items are given in the problem. You have to remember the items which are taken under equity and liability. Shareholders fund, non-current liability and current liability. Shareholders fund will come share capital and reserves and surplus. These 2 items will come under shareholders fund. Non-current liabilities, debentures or other long-term borrowings, that will be taken under non-current. Current liabilities, short trade payables, short-term borrowings, loans, short-term loans taken, short-term provisions. These are the items that may come under current liability. But in our problem, only 2 items are given: trade payable and short-term borrowings. Non-current liability में एक ही item है long term borrowings. The total of equity and liabilities is 19,35,000. Now come to assets. Assets again we categorize into 3 types. The first is non-current assets. Under non-current assets we take the fixed assets. Under fixed asset we have to classify tangible assets and intangible assets. In the problem itself it is given tangible assets are 10,60,000, intangible assets are 3,20,000. Second item is non-current investments, long-term investments or non-current investments. If it is specifically given, take it separately, 1,60,000. Then third and last item, current assets. Under current assets, we take trade receivable, inventories, cash and cash equivalent, other current assets. So first of all, current investments are given. Current investments are given 70,000. Trade receivables are given 35,000. Trade receivables means debtors. Then inventories, closing stock, 2,65,000. Cash and cash equivalent 25,000. The total of the assets are 19,35,000. This is the format of the balance sheet of the company. That's all. Now we'll come to the third problem. See the problem number 3. From the following particulars, ascertain the changes in inventories. Changes in inventories. Actually, opening stock, closing stock of work in progress, raw material, finished goods. How it will be taken in the balance sheet. So before that third problem, first you see the fourth problem, because I have already copied down here fourth problem. You see the fourth problem. In the next, after this fourth problem, we will discuss about the third problem. We have not taken third problem. Okay, fourth problem. Show how the balances will appear in the balance sheet after the required adjustments. Some adjustments are given. Equity share capital paid up 5 lakh. General reserve on 1/4/2014. Actually, we are making the final accounts on 31st March 2015. But here the general reserve is given on 1/4/2014. That means opening, beginning of the year. Surplus in P&L statement on 1/4/2014. Opening surplus. Then profit for the year 2014-15. Current year profit after tax, 4,50,000. तो equity capital is given, general reserve opening, surplus opening, and profit for the year. Adjustments what we have to make: declared dividend 10%, proposed dividend or declared dividend 10%. This 10% will be calculated always on the paid up capital. Paid up share capital के ऊपर 10% proposed dividend. Transfer to general reserve 75,000. Some instructions are given that out of the current year's profit, 75,000 rupees should be transferred to general reserve. Then corporate dividend tax rate 15% plus surcharge 12% plus education cess 3%. CDT, corporate dividend tax. CDT rate is given 15%. This CDT will be calculated on the proposed dividend. जो proposed dividend है उसके ऊपर CDT calculate करेंगे 15%, surcharge 12% and education cess 3%. Ignore grossing up of dividend. That's it. This is the problem. Now, see here how it will be presented. Reserves and surplus. Reserves and surplus. General reserve is given in the problem at the beginning of the year 2 lakh rupees. Beginning of the year general reserve balance 2 lakh rupees. Transfer to general reserve during the year 75,000. Adjustment में दे दिया है कि करंट ईयर के प्रॉफिट में से 75,000 रुपीज निकाल कर जनरल रिजर्व में डाल दो. तो जनरल रिजर्व में ऐड कर दिए तो टोटल जनरल रिजर्व विल बी 2,75,000 एट द एंड ऑफ द ईयर. नाउ प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस स्टेटमेंट. ओपनिंग बैलेंस ऑफ सरप्लस. ओपनिंग बैलेंस ऑफ सरप्लस इज 1 lakh. Add profit of the current year. प्रॉब्लम में दे दिया. It is given in the problem. Profit of the current year 4,50,000. तो opening balance 1 lakh, 4,50,000 profit. Total is 5,50,000. अब ये 5,50,000 में से appropriation करेंगे. Some amount is transferred to general reserve, some proposed dividend, some CDT. तो first of all transfer to general reserve minus total profit available 5,50,000 है. उसमें से 75,000 रुपीज माइनस कर देंगे और इसको ऐड कर में कर देंगे जनरल रिजर्व. यानी प्रॉफिट में से निकाल रहे और जनरल रिजर्व में ऐड कर दे रहे. तो वी आर सब्ट्रैक्टिंग 75,000. दैट्स व्हाई आई पुट इट इन ब्रैकेट. सिमिलरली प्रपोज्ड डिविडेंड. इट इज गिवन इन द प्रॉब्लम. डिक्लेयर्ड डिविडेंड 10%. 10% ऑफ व्हाट? पेड अप कैपिटल. द पेड अप कैपिटल इज गिवन इन द प्रॉब्लम 5 lakh. तो 10% ऑफ 5,50,000. अब ये कै में से पे करेंगे? प्रॉफिट में से पे करेंगे. प्रॉफिट में से 75,000 रुपीज निकाल कर जनरल रिजर्व में डाल देंगे. प्रॉफिट में से 50,000 रुपीज निकाल कर डिविडेंड पे करेंगे. तो दिस इज द प्रपोज्ड डिविडेंड. नाउ अकॉर्डिंग टू इनकम टैक्स एक्ट, whenever a company proposes to pay dividend, it has to pay dividend tax. Corporate dividend tax, CDT. The full form of CDT is corporate dividend tax. The rate of CDT is 15%. But we have to take 12% surcharge and 3% education cess also. So how much it will become gross value? Gross percentage, how much it will become? Here in working notes I have shown. CDT 15%, add surcharge at the rate of 12%. जो भी CDT रहेगा उसके 12% surcharge. तो CDT 15% है 15, उसका 12%. तो 12% of 15 you will get 1.8. तो 15 plus 1.8 16.8. ये 16.8 में दोनों भी है CDT और सरचार्ज. अब जो भी टोटल रहेगा उसका 3% एजुकेशन सेस. एजुकेशन सेस 3% of 16.8. तो इट विल बिकम 0.504. 3% of 16.8 0.504. नाउ यू एड अप 17.304. तो ग्रॉस परसेंटेज ऑफ CDT. ग्रॉस परसेंटेज ऑफ CDT इज 17.304. So this 17.304 should be calculated on the declared dividend. Here the declared dividend is 50,000. So 50,000 का 17.304% 8,652. So company has to pay 8,652 CDT, corporate dividend tax. ये भी पे करना है. कै में से पे करेंगे? प्रॉफिट में से पे करेंगे. तो प्रॉफिट में से 75,000 रुपीज माइनस कर दिए जनरल रिजर्व, 50,000 माइनस कर दिए प्रपोज डिविडेंड और 8,652 CDT. ये तीनों को माइनस कर देंगे. 5,50,000 minus 75,000 minus 50,000 minus 8,652, you will get 4,16,348. तीन आइटम माइनस करने के बाद you will get 4,16,348. Now you add up 2,75,000 general reserve and 4,16,348 is the surplus in P&L statement. सरप्लस इन प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस स्टेटमेंट, दोनों को ऐड कर दो 6,91,348. 6,91,348. This will be shown under reserves and surplus. बैलेंस शीट में जो आइटम रिजर्व्स एंड सरप्लस रहेगा वहां पर बताना है 6,91,348. और शॉर्ट टर्म प्रोविजंस में बताना है प्रपोज्ड डिविडेंड 50,000 और सीडीटी 8652 58,652 should be shown under short term provisions in the balance sheet. तो प्रॉब्लम में यही पूछ रहा है कि इसका प्रेजेंटेशन कैसा होगा. तो दिस इज द प्रेजेंटेशन इन द बैलेंस शीट. सो वी हैव कंप्लीटेड फोर्थ प्रॉब्लम. Hello students, now we'll start problem number 3. We have completed fourth problem. Third problem we have missed. Now we are covering the third problem. From the following particulars, ascertain the change in inventories. Ascertain the change in inventories. Inventories means stock. Three types of stocks are there. Stock of raw material, stock of work in progress, stock of finished goods. ये तीनों stocks को मिला लिए तो कहते हैं inventory. So we will have opening inventory as well as closing inventory. So we will find out the difference between opening inventory and closing inventory. That will show you the change in inventories. This change in inventories will be taken under expenses in profit and loss statement. जब profit and loss statement बनाएंगे तो expenses में change in inventories लेंगे, right? So we want how much is the change in inventories. So we are given raw material purchased. We don't require raw material purchased for finding out change in inventory. Work in progress on 1/4/2014. Finished goods 1/4/2014. Raw material 1/4/2014. 1/4/2014 means opening, because our year ends on 31st March 2015. So 1/4/2014 opening stock of WIP, opening stock of finished goods, opening stock of raw material. Similarly, finished goods on 31st March 2015. This is the closing stock of finished goods. Then closing stock of WIP, closing stock of raw material. So in the problem, we are given the opening stocks and closing stocks. We calculate the total of opening stock of WIP, opening stock of raw material, opening stock of finished goods. Similarly, the total of closing stock of finished goods, closing stock of WIP, closing stock of raw material. Then we can find out the change. Now you can see the solution here. Opening inventory on 1/4/2014. Work in progress 20,000, finished goods 1 lakh, raw material 70,000. The total of opening inventory 1,90,000. Closing inventory on 31st March 2015. Work in progress 25,000, finished goods 75, raw material 60, total 1,60,000. Now we can compare the opening and closing. The opening inventory 1,90,000, closing inventory 1,60,000. So what is the difference between opening and closing? The change in inventory is 1,90,000 minus 1,60,000, 30,000. तो ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग इन्वेंट्री में डिफरेंस जो आ रहा 30,000 रुपीज का डिफरेंस आ रहा. अब ये 30,000 रुपीज डिफरेंस, दिस शुड बी टेकन अंडर एक्सपेंसेस इन प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस स्टेटमेंट. तो कैसा लेंगे? इफ क्लोजिंग स्टॉक इज लेस, इट शुड बी टेकन एज पॉजिटिव फिगर. इफ क्लोजिंग स्टॉक इज मोर, it should be taken as a negative figure. Now you can see opening stock 1,90,000, closing stock 1,60,000. तो closing stock कम है. अगर closing stock कम है तो difference जो रहेगा 30,000, this should be taken as a positive figure. If closing stock is less, the difference should be taken as a positive figure. If closing stock is more, then the difference, then the change should be taken as a negative figure. As closing inventory is less than opening inventory, it appears as a positive value in the profit and loss statement. जब profit and loss statement बनाएंगे तो expenses में change in inventories 30,000 लेंगे positive, because the closing inventory is less than opening inventory. That's it. This is problem number 3. Problem number 4 already we have completed. Now we'll come to problem number 5. See the problem number 5. From the following particulars, prepare the balance sheet liabilities part, equity and liabilities pertaining to balance sheet of Pratham Company Limited. One company, Pratham Company Limited, the data is given only of the liability side of the balance sheet. So we have to make only liability side of the balance sheet. Now see the items. What are the items given in the problem? First, share capital. Share capital, we have to take it as first one. Pratham Company Limited, balance sheet as a dash. Only liabilities part. So particulars, equity and liabilities, shareholders fund. Shareholders fund by share capital, reserves and surplus. These two items will come under shareholders fund. As usual, every problem we are doing the same thing. Now share capital first. Note number 1 lakh. So this the details of this share capital should be shown in the notes. अब देखिए यहाँ पर notes लिखा हो, notes forming part of financial statements. Share capital 10,000, equity share of 10 each, 1 lakh. So the details should be shown in notes and the 1 lakh rupees should be shown in the balance sheet. Then short-term borrowings. Short-term borrowings will be taken under current liabilities. These current liabilities are there. We'll take short-term borrowings 15,000. Next item is 10% debentures. 10% debentures is long-term borrowings. It will come under non-current liabilities. So you can see here non-current liabilities, long-term borrowings. We have given the number 3 here. Note number 3. In note number 3 you can see long-term borrowings. Long-term borrowings from banks 15,000 and debentures 60,000. The total of this 75,000 will be taken under long-term borrowings 75,000. Right? So 10% debentures will be taken under long-term borrowings, non-current liability. General reserve, reserves and surplus. Second note. Second note, reserves and surplus 90,000. In reserves and surplus we have to take all the different types of reserves. General reserve, capital reserve, security premium, profit and loss statement balance, surplus. The total of this is 90,000. So remember, the details should not be shown in the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, only one heading, reserves and surplus. In notes, we have to show the details. So general reserve, we have taken trade payable. Trade payable is nothing but creditors, current liability. So trade payable we have to take under current liability. Trade payable 24,000. Then we have provision for employees retirement benefit. There is a provision for retirement benefit to the employees. It's a long-term provision because the employees are going to retire in future, in long term. That's why this should be taken under long-term provisions. This should be taken under long-term provisions. This is the long-term provisions, fourth note. Note number 4, long-term provisions. Provision for employees retirement benefit 27,000. 27. The only thing you have to remember, which item will come under which head. Next is long-term borrowings from banks. Long-term borrowings from banks, non-current liability. Long-term borrowings from bank, third note. Long-term borrowings from banks 15,000 and debentures. दोनों को मिलाकर 75. Next comes capital reserve. It's a part of reserves and surplus. So reserves and surplus में ले लेंगे capital reserve 20,000. Then we have share application money pending allotment. Sometimes what will happen, the company has issued the shares, the public has applied for the shares, but the company has not yet made the allotment. अभी तक company allotment नहीं किए. Application money आ गया. So that application money is called application money received pending allotment. This should be shown as a separate item on liability side. It should not be clubbed with any other item. So here we have to take share application money pending allotment 7,000, separate item. Then unpaid dividends. Unpaid dividends will come under current liability, other current liability. Other current liability, other current liability, fifth number. Number 5 you can see interest accrued on debenture, unpaid dividend 4,000. Other current liability. Security premium reserve. Security premium is also a part of reserves and surplus. So we have taken reserves and surplus, security premium 5,000. Next, profit and loss statement, profit after tax. This is a surplus. Surplus in profit and loss statement. So profit and loss statement balance 35,000. The total of all these general reserve, capital reserve, security premium, PN statement 90,000. This should be taken in the balance sheet under reserves and surplus. Next comes provision for taxation. Provision for taxation is a short term provision. Short term provision. So it will be taken under current liability, short term provision number 6. So sixth note, short term provision, provision for taxation 12,000. The last one, interest on debenture outstanding. Interest on debenture outstanding is a liability, current liability. So it will be taken under other current liabilities. So other current liabilities, fifth number. Interest on debenture outstanding 3,000. So unpaid dividend and interest on debenture outstanding both clubbed together 7,000. 7,000 should be taken here. 7,000 should be taken here. Other current liabilities 7,000. The total of the liability side is 3,57,000. That's it. This is the liability side of the balance sheet. Next, sixth problem. Problem number 6. From the following information pertaining to Ashish Company Limited, prepare assets part of the balance sheet as of 31st March. Previous problem, we have prepared on the liability side of the balance sheet. Now we have to make only the asset side of the balance sheet. Only asset side. So first we decide which item will come under which head. So you can see here, Ashish Company Limited balance sheet as at 31st March 2015, only asset side. Assets में 3 categories will make. First non-current assets, then non-current investments, then current assets. तो 3 items में classify कर देंगे. तो पहले non-current assets में fixed assets. Fixed assets में लेंगे tangible assets, intangible assets. Then non-current investments, then current assets में current investments, inventories, trade receivable, cash and cash equivalent, other current assets. These are the normal items. Every problem, almost 99% items will be same. 99% of the items will be same in every balance sheet. Now, goodwill. First item given in the problem is goodwill. We know goodwill is an intangible asset. Goodwill is an intangible asset. It will be taken under note number 2. यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं आप note number 2 intangible assets में goodwill 17,000. Next, investments non-current, specifically दे दिया non-current investment. तो डायरेक्टली ले लेंगे, यहाँ पर हेड है non-current investment 15,000. Then we have interest accrued on investment. Investment के ऊपर interest आने का है. It comes under other current assets. Interest accrued on investment will come under other current asset. You can see here note number 5. Other current asset, interest accrued on investment 3,000. Other current assets 3,000. Next comes inventories. Inventories on 31st March 2015. Closing stock. This is the closing inventory. So directly we'll take inventories 32,000 under current assets. Then we have investments current. The 2 types of investments are there. Non-current investments and current investments. Non-current investments already we have taken here. Now current investments will take under current assets. Then building cost 4,50,000, depreciation return of 30,000, written down value is 4,20,000. Complete detail there are कि building का cost 4,50,000 था when we have purchased, and the accumulated depreciation provided written off was 30,000. तो 4,50,000 में से अभी तक depreciation provide कर चुके हैं 30,000. तो 450 minus 30 420. तो written down value 4,20,000. This is a tangible asset. This is a tangible asset. तो tangible asset में building 4,20,000 in bracket cost 4,50,000. तो we have to show the details in the notes. ये सारा detail आपको balance sheet में नहीं बताना है. Balance sheet में only WDV आएगा. तो WDV is 4,20,000. अब यहाँ पर information दे रहे हैं कि उसका cost 4,50,000 था. Then plant same जैसा building करे हैं वैसी तरह plant. तो building and plant both are tangible assets. तो plant 84,000 WDV, इसका cost था 1 lakh. उसके बाद है patents. Patent is an intangible asset, just like goodwill. जैसा goodwill है वैसा ही patent है, तो it will come under intangible assets. You can see here intangible assets, goodwill 17,000, patents 15,000, total 32,000. ये 32,000 लेंगे intangible assets. Second note. Then we have trade receivable. Trade receivable is nothing but debtors. तो हमारे पास अलग item है. One of the item under current assets, trade receivable. Almost every problem will have this item. याद रखिए आपको 3 आइटम्स हर प्रॉब्लम में मस्ट रहते हैं करंट एसेट में. व्हाट आर द 3 आइटम्स? इन्वेंटरीज, ट्रेड रिसीवेबल्स, कैश एंड कैश इक्विवेलेंट. ये 3 आइटम्स एवरी प्रॉब्लम, मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम मस्ट रहते हैं. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट करंट इन्वेस्टमेंट में आता या अदर करंट एसेट्स आ सकते हैं. तो ट्रेड रिसीवेबल नोट नंबर 3 27,000, यहां पर है नोट नंबर 3 27,000. ट्रेड रिसीवेबल 24,000, बिल्स रिसीवेबल 3,000. तो बिल्स रिसीवेबल और डेटार्स दोनों को मिला लिए तो ट्रेड रिसीवेबल कहेंगे. तो ट्रेड रिसीवेबल आ गया, देन बिल्स रिसीवेबल, ये दोनों को भी लेंगे ट्रेड रिसीवेबल. फर्नीचर, इट्स अ टैंजिबल एसेट. हियर वी हैव टेकन फर्नीचर, WDV 12,000, उसका कॉस्ट था 15,000. Then next is balance with bank. This is cash and cash equivalent. One item is there, cash and cash equivalent. In this cash and cash equivalent, we'll take cash balance with bank 25,000. Then cash on hand. Cash on hand and balance with bank. ये दोनों को मिलाकर cash and cash equivalent में लेंगे. तो totally is 27,000 cash and cash equivalent. Next, vehicle. It's a tangible asset. Vehicle is a tangible asset. WDV 18,000. Cost उसका 20,000. Last item, office equipment. Office equipment is also a tangible asset. Office equipment 14,000. The total of the tangible assets are 5,48,000. Here you can see 5,48,000. This is the method of presentation of balance sheet. तो पहले फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आपको याद रखना है कि हाउ द आइटम्स शुड बी शफल्ड, शेड्यूल्ड. तो पहला एसेट्स में नॉन करंट एसेट्स, नॉन करंट एसेट्स में फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, फिक्स्ड एसेट्स में टैंजिबल एसेट्स, इनटैंजिबल एसेट्स. द डिटेल ऑफ टैंजिबल एसेट शुड बी शोन इन द नोट. इनटैंजिबल एसेट द डिटेल शुड बी शोन इन द नोट. ये हो गया. नॉन करंट इन्वेस्टमेंट, इन सम प्रॉब्लम्स इट इज देयर, नॉट एवरी प्रॉब्लम. तो नॉन करंट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर गिवन 15,000. अब करंट एसेट्स में वी आर गिवन करंट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स डायरेक्टली दे दिया 18,000. इन्वेंटरीज डायरेक्टली ले लिया, नोट्स में नहीं लिखे क्योंकि एक ही आइटम है. ओनली वन आइटम इज देयर इन्वेंटरीज, दैट्स व्हाई वी हैव नॉट रिटन इन द नोट्स. इन्वेंटरीज 32,000. ट्रेड रिसीवेबल थर्ड नोट, क्योंकि ट्रेड रिसीवेबल में 2 आइटम्स आए, एक ट्रेड रिसीवेबल, एक बिल्स रिसीवेबल, दोनों को जो है ट्रेड रिसीवेबल. कैश एंड कैश इक्विवेलेंट के लिए भी नोट बना दिया 4th, क्योंकि कैश एंड कैश इक्विवेलेंट में कैश इन हैंड, कैश एट बैंक, दोनों को टोटल करके कैश एंड कैश इक्विवेलेंट. अदर करंट एसेट्स में एक ही आइटम है. वी हैव टेकन इंटरेस्ट अक्रूड ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट 3,000. The total of the asset side of the balance sheet is 7,02,000. This is the end of problem number 6.